Hey there, Average Joes. Welcome back to the Eternal Struggle. I am your average host, JayMang. Once again, I'm joined today by my taller than average co host, TallSharkandHandsome. How are you doing today, Shark?
I am great. I uh, I did a little bit of filming today outside on this giant hill that overlooks Baltimore's Inner Harbor. It was pretty sweet. I got to leave work at like 1 o'clock and stay there doing this little thing till like 4 o'clock. It was pretty awesome. I don't know, how about you? How are you doing today?
I'm doing good. I don't really have a whole lot to comment on, to be honest. I spent the last week watching GDQ, like a lot of games done quick.
Yeah.
Very quickly, my fiance and I, that has become our thing to do whenever it's on, because she is like not super into gaming, but she very much enjoys watching gaming, and like speed running is like the proverbial best thing for people like that.
Oh, for
Like to
sure.
be able to watch somebody play games that they're very very good at. So we that's kind of become our thing to watch GDQ, and we really enjoy um watching like Zelda runs. We enjoy watching like the Mario stuff, especially like the hacked Mario stuff, like Super Dram World, and I think Poo World 2 was the one they did this year, where it's like incredibly difficult Mario shit.
Oh yeah. That was cool.
Um, and then we really like Tazbot too, because we just like
Oh
watching,
yeah.
like, yeah, Tazbot's great. The Celeste run on Tazbot was super crazy, even though I fell asleep during it.
I didn't actually get a chance to check out the Tazbot stuff from this year, but I was there last year when they like did a Skype call through the Tazbot. They were on a Super Nintendo and they were playing Portal through with the Tazbot.
That's pretty fucking cool. Yeah,
It was really
all the
cool.
Tazbot stuff is really neat. So why don't you tell me
Sweet.
about your week in Eternal?
All right, so my week in Eternal. I think last week I was talking about how I was having some fun with a Rakano deck. And now the cat's kind of out of the bag. It actually came in first place in the ETS. That's the deck that I've been using, and I actually finished this past month and like in like the top 130 or something like that.
Well, I'm sure it's
Uh,
slightly different from last week because what you were playing before was before the Akaria buff, right?
no, actually, it was.
Because we
Oh
didn't
well,
know
okay.
Akaria
So
was getting buffed last week.
right. So it must have happened right after that. Maybe I didn't mention it last week in the episode then, because they wouldn't have happened. It was the buffs happened like the next day,
Yeah,
which is pretty funny. But yeah, so I've been playing a little bit of that. I tried a little bit of the Skycrag mid, and some Stone Scar, I guess. But yeah, I had just had a ton of experience with that, and we've got a pretty fun, spicy brew of the week here. Jay, how was your week in Eternal?
So I haven't played too much in the past week. Now I did happen to play a handful of games with Stone Scar right before the buffs and nerfs went live, and then had to play like maybe two or three games with Mono Shadow after they were live to hit Masters. And then I'm not gonna lie, I just didn't really play a whole lot until yesterday, where I tried out a handful of different decks, mostly like Rakano Valks, which I didn't feel real good piloting. I think that really comes down to I just didn't spend enough time playing it. But I mean, like I didn't play a whole lot, but I know that I would like to try and hit Masters early this month, so I'll be playing a lot more this coming week.
Gotcha. Yeah, that's cool. It's always good to hit masters as early as possible rather than as late as possible because at the end of the
Yeah,
month, everybody's trying to do it.
yeah, that's the plan. Last month I went on vacation during the second week, so I wasn't able to close it out super early. Um, but anyways, so real quick, the topics we're gonna go over this week. We're gonna, of course, talk about ETS, which is the first ETS after balance changes went live. Then we're gonna talk about said balance changes that occurred a day after our last recording. And then the last topic we're going to talk about is going to be more of an opinion section. We're going to talk about the balance changes whiplash that's been going on, where it seems like they pretty consistently on a, I'd say maybe what, 3-4 week basis have been making some pretty uh swift and strong changes to the game, as you'll see when we get to,
Sweeping.
yeah, sweeping is a good word for it. As you'll see when we get to our second topic, and there's a lot of buffs and nerfs to talk about.
For sure, for sure. But
Mm.
first, let's get into the ETS. Let's talk about the ETS
All
here.
right, so the ETS was won this week by Eric9909, who is definitely going to win worlds at this fucking rate. I'm just gonna say it now. Playing Rakano Valks. So the Rakano Valks deck, obviously, since we had some balance changes, it's looking a little different now. So Akaria got unnerfed. So there's 4 Akarias in the list. And then outside of that, it looks very much like your typical Rakano Valks list. There's not much else to comment on. I guess I should probably go over what the list has in it for everybody. So
Probably.
we're seeing 4 Defiance, 4 Torches, 3 Auric Rune Hammers, and 3 Vanquish, which are like removal suite. And then our units are 4 Bullet Shaper, 4 Akaria Valkyrie Captain, 4 Red Canyon Smugglers, 3 Enforcers, 2 Winchest Merchants, so they're playing the 6 Merchant / Smuggler combo, 4 Sadidi, 4 Rizon, 4 Akaria the Liberator, and 3 Zoe Endless Horde with some privilege of rank, 4 privilege of rank to power the Bullet Shapers. And in the market, we're seeing Boar, Pristine Light, Reclaim, Stormhalt Knife, and a Svetya Merciful Oreen.
Yeah. So I have been playing this deck since the nerfs or the nerfs and buffs of last Tuesday it would have been. This deck is so much fun if you know how to pilot it. It is definitely difficult to pilot it, and it took me a little while to kind of figure out what I was trying to do here. But you always want to have an opening hand with either Bullet Shaper or Akaria, which is pretty self-explanatory. But you also need to kind of anticipate what your opponent is playing. So, for example, there's been multiple games where I have both Bullet Shaper and Akaria, and I know that my opponent is playing Primal, and I see them draw a card with Fate, so I know that they have a Snowball. So instead of playing Akaria on turn 2, I'll play Bullet Shaper on turn 2, which doesn't die to Snowball. Or if I'm really dead set on the Bullet Shaper plan, like I have a privilege of rank in my hand, maybe I'll play Akaria so that they, use their actual removal on that, and then I do Bullet Shaper privilege of rank, or whatever. It's all about anticipating what your opponent is doing and trying to twist your game plan to beat that. Which not a lot of decks can do. Like a lot of decks are pretty, straightforward, streamlined, but this one in particular is pretty flexible.
Yeah, I definitely think that when I was playing it a little too aggressively. This is definitely more of a high-end mid-range deck. But also, like, I mean, it loses pretty hard to aggro. So I was playing against Alessi, which came in second place. We'll talk about that list in a second. I was playing against them, and they got a very large board of things that Pristine Light doesn't hit, and it's very, very difficult to come back from that when it's very hard to turn on your Rezons, and that's your only way of getting lifesteal.
That's true. Now there is Stormhalt Knife in the market, but that only gives you 5, and you're usually using that to kill something.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, there have been games where Pristine Light has just absolutely destroyed the other team. Like they have like 4 really big dudes, like double Heart of the Vault and a Sandstorm Titan, and I Pristine Light, and then I get back my Sadidi and run away with the game.
Yeah,
But
Eric's on a tear is all I gotta say.
oh yeah, he was second place, then first place, right? Is that?
Yeah, I think it goes even further back than that, to be honest.
No, probably.
Yeah. So let's move on to second place. Second place was, oh god, Wallow Tiaja. God, that was the best I could do. I'm so sorry. Like, however you pronounce that name. Playing Alessi Moment. Now, I'm not gonna lie, I'm gonna craft this before I even start talking about this because Moment of Creation is like my favorite pet card in Eternal. I have to say pet card now
Really?
because it's not as good as it used to be, but like Moment of Creation was one of my favorite legendary crafts back when I made it. Um, but let's get into the deck list. So we're seeing 4 Alessi Cambrai Archmage, 3 Pearl Abbey Smugglers, 4 Red Canyon Smugglers. So we're seeing 7 smugglers in this list. 4 Crown Watch Press Gangs just to get your Alessis. 4 Heart of the Vault and 4 Zoe in this horde, which I mean that makes sense if you're playing that many smugglers. 4 Defiance, 4 Torch, and 4 Vanquish, along with 3 Pristine Light for your removal. And then some of your utility stuff would be 3 Sword of Unity, 3 Great Parliaments, 2 Find the Ways, and 4 Seek Powers. So lots of ways to get card advantage. And
Yeah,
then
for sure.
oh, I'm sorry.
Okay.
In your market, you've got Stand Together, a Praxis Banner, Harsh Rule, a Moment of Creation, and a Rezon. So this deck has the potential to play a very controlling meta or a controlling game, and then in one turn drop a couple units, sort of unity up the units. This deck has a lot of play to it, just from the outside looking in. And from being on the receiving end of a fucking beating from this deck, like this is the kind of deck that I think I would enjoy playing. So this is the next deck I will be trying out.
Yeah, it's pretty cool. It's got Zhou to get card advantage, which you can use with Smuggler, or you can use the draw card to pump your Alessis and your Pearl Abbey Smugglers. It's got Find the Way, which there's only 2 of, but they also have Echo, so basically you have 4 of them, which you can again use for market fodder or to play and pump your team. The I was watching Platypus play this actually earlier today, and he just did super duper well.
All right, nice.
Yeah.
So moving on to third and fourth place, why don't you introduce third and fourth place decks?
So third place is I Am Monstrum. It's a Stone Scar aggro, basically just dropping the high end. It's not playing any Tazboos, it's not playing any Eclipse Dragons. Its high end is Bandit Queen, and there's only 3
Makes
of them.
sense.
It's got Grenadin Drone, Oni Patrol, Oni Ronin, Argenport Instigator, Blackhall War Leader, Rip Knife Assassin, Champion of Chaos, Ixton Merchant, and the Bandit Queens.
All right.
It's got Torch, Annihilate, Desecrate, and Shakedown, and the rest of its power. So it's like really streamlined. There's no fooling around here. It's I'm going to hit you or I'm going to remove your units.
Yep.
And then the market, it's got Obliterate or Flame Blast to end the game if you get into like a little bit of a stall. It's got Combust to get rid of a big unit, and it's got the 4th Bandit Queen and a Vicious Highwayman, which is interesting.
This seems like a pretty good
card.
Pretty good meta call. Like right now, especially if people are trying to play Rakano Valks, this actually seems like it pairs out pretty well against Rakano Valks. Since the Valks deck is not playing any harsh rules in its current iteration, at least I'm going to say current iteration because I'm going to assume most of the people that are playing it are going to be playing Eric's list. And a lot of these units dodge the Pristine Light.
The only one that doesn't is Champion of Chaos.
Yeah. So I should say also it is susceptible to some of the other removal in there, but regardless, seems like a reasonable meta call. I mean, aggro is always pretty good in situations where slow decks are very, very popular. So I can see many reasons why you would want to run that list. So fourth place.
Fourth place was by Moosh with Eternal Titans. That was the Relic aggro deck that we've seen a whole bunch. This one we talked about last week. I think it was in the top 8.
It was fourth place by Moosh again.
Yes, by Moosh again. Yeah, he did it last week too, right?
Yeah, and this looks like the exact same 75, or I'm sorry, 80.
It was.
I don't have much to say on this. It looks exactly like the same list.
Yeah. Well, if you do want to see this, I'm sure we'll have a link to the top 8 in our
Or you can go
links
to
or whatever.
eternalwarcry.com and look at the tournaments tab. So
That's true too.
moving on to 5th through 8th place. So we've got a spicy Aurelian Scream deck. So
I love this deck.
yeah, I'll run through all the, because this is pretty different from what we've been seeing for a while now, at least. So for the units, we're seeing 4 Argenport Instigator, 4 Dusk Raiders, 4 Teacher of Humility, 4 Gorgon Fanatics, which we haven't seen in a while, 4 Geneb Merchant, 3 Albon Roa, which is the new promo card that's come out in the last week. I think it dropped between the last 2 episodes, and I kind of forgot for us to. I guess we'll talk about it right now. So this is Time Primal Influence 4-drop. 5/3 with Onslaught, double the cost of a card in the enemy hand, and then Infiltrate +2 toughness and killer.
Yes. So this is really cool. Here you go. Now you can see a picture of it if you're watching.
It's very small.
It is very small, but
Here.
whatever. So I mean, I tried. So the card is really, really cool. It's just a 5/3. If you hit if you've attacked this turn, you get to look at your opponent's hand aside from their power, which is huge.
Yeah, very big, actually.
Yeah, and you get to double the cost of a card in it, which is pretty good. Slow your opponent down by a lot. And if you hit them with this, it becomes a 5/5 with killer. So I think the main idea with this is to scream it and hit them with it, give the +2 toughness and killer, and then eventually dark return it or whatever.
Yeah, very interesting card design. Seems like it fits right into this type of archetype. So moving on with the list, the last playset of units would be the Sakelis, which makes sense. So our spell suite is 4 Dark Return, 4 Shakedown, 3 Haunting Screams, 3 Permafrost, 4 Equivocates, 4 Ice Bolts, and a Miser Unseal. And then in the market, we've got the 4th Permafrost, the 4th Haunting Scream, a Mirror Image, Honor of Claws, and the 4th Albon.
Interesting.
Deck is sweet. I mean, it's a different take on a Scream style deck.
Yeah, Team Genji's got a cool list here.
Yep, they've definitely been innovating some interesting styles of gameplay.
For sure.
All right, so moving on to one of my favorite people in the Eternal scene, Magikarp, playing what he has called Skycarp mid-range. It's a Skycrag aggro mid deck that is what I would call it. So our units are 4 Oni Ronin, 4 Champion of Fury, 4 Dusk Raider, 4 Ixtian Merchant, 4 Vadius, which all of these things sound pretty familiar for a Skycrag aggro deck. And then we beyond that, we have 4 Zuberries, 3 Eclipse Dragon, and 4 Jotun Feast Callers.
Yeah, those are a little funky.
Yeah, it's an interesting take on the list. Like, it's definitely a lot higher curve, but even higher than that, at 6, we have 3 Howling Peaks, which is very interesting choice. A 4 Permafrost, 4 Torch, 4 Ice Bolts, 4 Seek Powers. And then in our market, we have a Flame Blast, the 4th Howling Peak, a Caleb's Choice, a Shugo Standard, and the 4th Eclipse Dragon, which makes sense. It's kind of like a tech against a opposing Howling Peaks or sites.
Oh yeah, for sure. Eclipse Dragon is real good if your opponent is trying to play sites. I tried this deck a little bit. It has some real fun games when you get Dusk Raider or Zuberry and you just draw any unit.
Yeah.
I had a game where I put a Merchant into the market and then drew it back and then drew back the Eclipse Dragon, and they both had double strike or double damage and Berserk, and it was just absolutely
gross. That's pretty gross. That's called I'm winning this game.
Yeah, if you have time to Merchant away a Merchant and then Merchant it back,
and then Merchant again and get another unit, like that's pretty crazy.
Then, yeah.
All right.
Go. And then what do we got? We got 7th and 8th here left.
Yeah, why don't you take us in 7th?
All right, seventh place by Brody138. It is a Dark Paladins list. Now, I've seen a couple of lists like this on the Reddit. This is an even-handed deck. It's got
I
4 last
didn't realize
chance.
until now that it was even-handed.
Yeah, even with the even-handed nerf, it still came in top 8 here. 4
Wow.
last chance, 4 desecrate, 4 reweave, which I will say again is my favorite card in the new set. It's got 2 annihilate, 4 devour, 1 Abergraft, Miser's Abergraft, Miser's Nullblade as well, 2 Vanquisher's Blades, 2 Stormhalt Knives, and 3 Sword of the Sky King. Which
Interesting.
is interesting. Yeah, it's got Anointer of the Faithful, like you'd imagine in a Paladin deck, Even-Handed Golem, Hojin, Unwavering Exorcist, which I think is a super cool card. There's only one of it, but it's the 3/2 for 2 from the Into Shadows. You're immune to damage from night, and when you summon it, you kill an enemy curse. It can take off Permafrosts. It can take off the Siditi curse. It can take off Teacher of Humility's curse. Like that's a really cool meta play. I like that a lot.
Yeah, the Miser doesn't hurt you too much if you draw it when it doesn't do anything.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, it's a 3/2 for 2 if you don't have one. But then it's got Champion of Vengeance, which is interesting.
Yeah, that's a really.
I guess it is a paladin.
Choice.
That's why.
Oh yeah.
And Copper Hall Paladin and Vara, and then Reyna the Unwavering.
Who is
Reyna
also a paladin.
Yeah. Interesting. Really cool deck. I'd be interested to see how it works.
Yeah, I don't see it, but that's just me. I don't see how this is better than just playing something similar to like Knife Bloom, who that's a name I haven't heard in a while. The deck that Knife Bloom was playing something like 6 months ago.
Yeah, I mean, I don't see you in top 7. So
22 people. There, I said it. Anyways, moving on to the last list is our friend Paradox, who was playing a Praxis midrange deck, like kind of similar to a classic Praxis midrange list with some upgrades. So I don't have much to say about this list other than it's literally Praxis midrange, except it's playing for Zumakan.
Yeah, this is 90% time with Torch, Purify, and Heart of the Vault. So,
yep, splashing 3 red for Heart of the Vault.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't really have a whole lot to say. The Swirl of the Sands in the market's kind of neat.
Though, yeah.
Yeah. Dissociate Swirl of Sands, Swirl the Sands, which if you don't know what that is 3-cost time card that says put an enemy relic, curse, or unit with flying on the bottom of its owner's deck. So it's kind of a catch-all for relics, curses, and some.
It's also of note that it's a fast spell.
Oh yeah, true. Yeah. It's pretty neat tech. Not much else to say on this.
Yeah, I mean, I dig it. I mean, I like the name of it. IDK. I'm probably washed up.
Yeah. You're not, Paradox. So a couple last things I wanted to talk about the ETS this week is that only 2D. Jesus, I cannot speak tonight. Sorry. Only 22 players total entered this week for the ETS. That I don't know off the top of my head if it is, but that seems like it may be the lowest number that they've had in a very long time.
Yeah, well, I mean, we can pretty easily check that. Let me go back.
I'm fairly certain that they usually get between like 35 and 45 players.
Well, it was 26 the week before, 32 before that, and 24 before that. So
wow,
it's okay, it's a little light, but it's kind of on par.
Yeah, maybe I'm just imagining like a year ago is when we were seeing bigger numbers. So ignore my last comment, but still 22 players. But looking at the top 8, that's a pretty stacked top 8. So I don't think it really takes a whole lot away. So if you want some stiff competition, really try your hand at some very challenging gameplay, I would suggest playing the ETS.
Yeah. All right, so let's move on to our topic 2, which are the balance changes that we didn't get to talk about last episode because they happened literally hours after we recorded this episode. The last episode. That always happens, right?
Yeah,
All
it's unfortunate.
right, so I'll go through the nerfs. Then you want to go through the buffs,
Yeah,
or vice
like
versa?
I'll let you introduce them, but we'll talk about each card as we go through.
No, you're not allowed. All right,
Hmm.
so all right, so the first nerf is Vara. Now this may seem pretty innocuous, like pretty like a small change. It went from a 3/4 that has the ability to a 3/3, which is, it seems
It's
like
pretty
okay, you
big.
changed one number, but it is absolutely enormous.
It's pretty
It
big
makes it,
change.
yeah,
Torchable,
it makes it so that you can torch Vara, which is huge.
especially in response to the sacrifice trigger.
Exactly. Yep.
Um, that being said, I think that this is pretty level-headed change. I don't think that it makes the card unplayable. I think the card is completely still playable.
Yeah, I think it's fair now.
Yeah, that's reason. That's a reasonable assessment, I'd say, about this change. Whether or not it was needed is a different story, but this is fine. Um, this makes it so when you play your second Bara against aggro doesn't necessarily automatically just lose to it.
Yeah, for sure.
All right, so the next
Um,
one.
Yep. The next one is Statuary Maiden, which we saw a similar kind of change to Steward of the Past, but a similar nerf, I would say. But Statuary Maiden was a 2/4 for 4. It is now a 2/2 for 4.
This is a
Rest in peace,
Yeah,
Statuary
this
Maiden.
is a
Goodbye.
fucking stupid change. I am actually pretty dumbfounded by why this change was made. I don't understand. Statuary Maiden, in my opinion, was a very fair card at 2/4, deadly for 4. Like this is where did this come from? Why make this change to Statuary Maiden?
Well, I mean, they talk about it in the balance changes. They say that the change to Vara should help improve balance in Stone Scar. However, she appears in such a wide range of other shadow decks, we wanted to take additional action on the Stone Scar specific component. So while Maiden has a lot of good gameplay, she can have a pretty intense impact on unit heavy decks. So our hope is that this change preserves the synergies she makes possible while increasing counterplay and reducing her ability to single handedly bring a game to a standstill.
Except this just kills the card. This makes Statuary Maiden completely unplayable. That's why I don't understand this change. I think if you wanted to target Stone Scar in particular, you undo the unnerf on Cha. Like you Champion of Chaos. Like killing Statuary Maiden makes no sense to me. That's all I'm gonna say about it. Like I dusted these as soon as I possibly could. Like there's no reason
Yeah.
to have these in your collection anymore.
It did feel a little weird, but I mean, after reading this, it does make a little bit of sense. I did see just so many games get ground to a standstill as soon as you played this 2/4 unit. Like, what?
Yeah, I mean it's a 2/4 for 4. I don't know. I felt like the card was super fair. And
Hmm.
I mean like I think it comes down to people not prioritizing their removal, but that's a whole nother argument. Like that
Well,
comes
see,
down to a
I
lot
think
of
your
different shit.
argument comes from someone who, loved playing FJS, someone who loved playing Stone Scar, whereas my argument is kind of coming from someone who loves playing Scream decks and who loves playing aggro decks and, combo-y kind of decks. And
Well,
Statuary Maiden is, I
I
don't know.
understand that, but that's why you keep certain removal for certain cards.
Mhm.
But okay, so we'll move on from there. That's just how
Yeah.
I think that it comes down to people need to like it's I'm trying to say in a nice way of like just get good. Like I'm not like that's kind of the argument I'm making is like making threat assessment, which is something that we've talked about in the past, is like threat assessment and like using removal in certain situations. Statuary Maiden is so, in my opinion, fair that it seems ridiculous that you would nerf it this hard and make it an unplayable card. So the next nerf would be even-handed golem gaining void bound.
I think this is an excellent nerf.
It's reasonable. It's
Even-handed,
great.
I mean, even-handed golem is a phenomenal card, even if it doesn't have void bound. I mean, without void bound, it was absolutely phenomenal. Even with void bound, it's still making top 8 in the the weekly ETS tournament here. Like it's
Yeah, it's still a very
super good.
powerful card. Like I know that some people were toying around with non-shadow versions of even decks, but I think that the even hand decks that were over the top powerful were because you can last chance your golems and just draw so many cards.
Yeah, for sure.
Yep. Not much
I
else
dig it.
to
I dig
say.
it. Yep. I like that one. Next up, we have the Daria Warrior Poet nerf. That used to cost 4 and was a 3/4. It now costs 5 and is a 3/5. Daria, I didn't see in any decks until Praxis Pledge came out. And I mean,
This was obviously a target because they were, with these changes, they were expecting Stone Scar to leave a void in the meta that this deck was going to fill in. So this is the choice they made. They made, between this and the next card we're going to talk about, they decided to nerf Praxis Pledge as well, because that's all they're good at doing, is just nerfing decks out of existence. I feel like, I'm sorry if I sound really what pessimistic about everything.
salty.
That's, yeah, salty, pessimistic. Like I'm not particularly, we'll get into that later.
Yeah.
Anyways, so this, I mean, I didn't play Praxis Pledge, so I don't know. Like, all I've heard is that this really clogs up the 5-drop slot for that deck.
Yeah. Well, this one, it kind of made this nerf and the next nerf swap places. So Moonstone Vanguard is the next one. It used to be a 5/5 for 5 that gains 5 health. Now it's a 4/4 that gains 4 health for 5. Well,
Yeah,
I guess they didn't swap places.
they
It
did
still
not.
costs 5.
Yeah, this is
Yeah.
part of the clogging up. They not only clogged up the 5-drop slot, but they also nerfed another 5-drop that's there that um I don't necessarily know if I feel like this was merited a nerf. I think that they did this just as a precaution.
I
I
can see that. Yeah, totally.
I don't know what else to say about it. Like, it was a, oh, we're gonna nerf this deck out of existence, and since we know that this deck is worst matchup is the deck that we're nerfing, we're gonna nerf that deck too. Like, it just, God, I'm just so angry. Apparently,
That's all right.
I don't know if I agree with this nerf. They obviously decided that they needed to target Praxis / time, I guess.
Yeah.
I don't know. The card still seems playable as a 4/4 that gains 4 health. Like, just a teensy bit less playable.
Yeah, yeah, for sure. I mean, those are the nerfs. Those are the bad things that happened. Well, I guess quote unquote.
Yeah, I guess we'll talk about the buffs, the good things. So the first one right off the bat is they unnerfed Ikaria the Liberator, made her a 7-drop, and pretty much killed all confidence that I have in Direwolf Digital being able to balance this game.
Really, it's Ikaria is the reason why.
Part of it, I don't think that Ikaria needed to be unnerfed. Personally, I don't see any reason why you would make all these changes. Like, let's make Vara less playable and then make the card that Vara killed more playable. Like, not necessarily killed, but like made less playable. Like, I don't see any reason why Ikaria needed to go back to where she was. As far as I'm concerned, Ikaria was maybe a little less, like a little underplayed for at 8 cost. Like, she wasn't played at all. Like, and she seems like a pretty good card still.
I mean, and they said that while Ikaria was extremely dominant for a very long time, the landscape in the game has changed enough that, and there are enough 7+ power cost cards that are like huge in the game right now, like Zhou or Talut, just like tons of cards even in those colors that are that big, that it was time to bring her back. That's
yeah, but do we actually believe that? Do we actually think that, like, do you think that she's safe being unnerfed like this? I know that you've been playing with her recently, but do you think that this was the correct choice for them to make?
I mean, I think it's fine.
Okay.
Ikaria still dies to quite a bit.
Yeah, I
Ikaria,
mean, the
like,
future will only show. Like, the meta obviously still needs to settle, so I could be wrong. I I shouldn't be so hyperbolic about it. Like, I think that this is a risky move. Let's just say that. I think it's risky for them to, in the middle of making so many different changes, they decided to unnerf one of the most powerful cards in the game.
Yeah, I mean, I don't think that they were gonna unnerf Ikaria like as a onesie by herself. That doesn't make any sense. But
Yeah, but
one thing to note is that the most played card in Eternal right now, I believe, is Siditi, which completely blanks Ikaria. Like it's a 6/6 flying. It just stone cold blocks Ikaria and Ikaria dies.
is also playable with Ikaria.
It is also playable with Ikaria. It is also playable against
Yeah.
Ikaria.
So like I just feel like this it seems weird to me that you would nuke two decks and then Rakano's been seeing play before this unnerf happened, like before Ikaria went back to 7 cost. So it seems weird to me that you would nuke two decks and then give one deck that has been shown to be playable one of their best tools back.
I can see that. I can see that.
It just seemed odd to me. Like, let's just I will retract my statement that I think it's the worst choice they've ever made, because I think that nerfing Statuary Maiden is the worst choice they ever made. Right now at least. But but we'll see once the meta settles, unless they decide to shake it up in 2 more weeks.
Okay, so yes, that.
Let's move on to the next card.
The next one I am very excited about. I have not had time to play with it because I've been really excited about being in the top 3 digits of Masters finally. But this is Bartholo the Seducer. It actually used to cost 3 and Justice Shadow, but then it was nerfed to 4 Justice Shadow, and now they brought it back to 3 Justice Shadow. So it is now a 3-drop Aegis unblockable 2/2.
Wasn't the ultimate different in the original, and then they like buffed the ultimate but also made him cost 1 more?
I don't know. I know that what is it, 7 cost to go get a relic from your deck?
Something like that. He was nerfed.
A weapon.
He was nerfed shortly before I started playing the game, so I never experienced a nerf Barth, and so I know that a lot of people were really worried about this, but as far as I can tell so far, he hasn't really done much in this past week.
No, not at all. But I'm excited to try Bart out in a bunch of other decks.
Blitz.
I mean, like a Blitz deck would have a lot of fun with this. Like something with that the Reinvigorate combo that we were playing for a while. That would be really cool.
Yeah, that would. I would like to tool around with the card a little bit. I just don't know if I want to spend.
Oh, so I just checked it out. It looks like it was originally the ultimate was pay 10 to go get a relic, and they brought the ultimate down to pay 7 when they nerfed it up to a 4 cost.
Okay, interesting.
Yeah, because like nobody's ever getting to 10.
Yeah, right. Especially in a deck where you're playing a card like Barth. Like,
yeah,
it seems odd. Anyway, so yeah, that's Barth. It'll be interesting to see if somebody ends up breaking him or not. So the next card they buffed was Banish. Banish now kills units or relics with cost 5 or less instead of 4.
This is huge.
Yeah, this is pretty fucking big. Like, I actually should be trying out Xenon, because Xenon has always been one of my favorite faction pairs. And obviously Banish is like the proverbial Xenon removal spell. And so I need to be hitting up Xyrith to find out what he's doing.
Yeah, man. I mean, this takes out. Well, I guess it doesn't take out Svetch's Sanctum anymore because they nerfed that to cost 6. I guess they buffed it if you're talking about Banish. But, but yeah, it still takes out like huge relics. It takes out Xenon Obelisk, but it also takes out Siditi. It also takes out just literally anything that costs 5. Right?
Yeah, this is a pretty large buff, especially considering that they are pushing Rakano so hard right now.
Yeah. Oh yeah. Yep, that is huge. They also changed Knight Chancellor Seraph, which is kind of weird. I don't think that was on anybody's radar.
Not at all.
It used to cost 8 and exhaust her to make a random unit, but double the power and toughness. Now it costs 7. and exhaust her to do the same thing. It's literally just
Yeah, I'm
I,
curious
I,
to
I
see if
like
people try to play Combre now, because like Combre aggro hasn't really been present for a while now. I know that some lists of like some of the older Chambre lists would play one in the market as a like recursion, like make units type card. So
yeah.
it's I mean it's possible that it could end up there. I'm not real sure. It makes the card a little bit more playable, which is always nice, and it's not like a scary change. Like that's a pretty
No,
reasonable change. So they
yeah, it's fine.
also, yeah, that's pretty okay. They also happen to buff her choice, which used to cost 8 and now costs 7. Which I'm
Oh,
not.
Seraph's choice.
Yeah, Seraph's choice. Sorry, and I'm not real sure how if that really makes it any more playable. It wasn't really that playable to start. It's a pretty decent
Yeah.
like limited card from what I understand, or like okay limited card, but other than that, like I just don't really see this seeing constructed play.
I mean, I never saw this in limited play either. Like, I feel like the only so the card costs. It used to cost 8. One time, one justice. It is a slow spell. It says choose one. Double the power and toughness of all of your units this turn, or draw a unit of your choice from your deck and double its power and toughness permanently. I mean, it's
Yeah.
interesting, but we have
What would this cost for
Rise
us
of
to
the
make it?
Challenge. Rise
Yeah, I
of
would say what would this have to cost for us to make it playable?
uh, 5 maybe.
Yeah, but at 5, doubling all of your units' power and
For
toughness
one turn.
for one turn. Yeah, okay. 5
I
or
mean, we have
6.
Rise to the Challenge, which draws a unit or weapon of your choice and gives it +2 attack, which is cool, but it's in different colors.
Yeah. Okay.
I don't know.
Yeah.
I just
I
feel like Seraph's Choice is just so wacky and nobody's playing it. It's
Yeah,
I don't
they're
know.
obviously trying to push a deck by making that change, this change, and then the next change, which was Shush, going from a 3 cost Time Justice card to a 2 cost Time Justice card. Now,
Oh yeah.
Shush silences a unit in play and then also silences every copy of that unit in the opposing player's hand and deck. I don't think it hits market though.
No, hand, deck, and void,
And void. So yeah.
and it's a fast spell.
Oh, and it's a fast spell, so that's pretty reasonable. So you can
Yeah,
combat trick your opponent if they're like attacking you with a champion of chaos. You shush it and then block. Seems pretty reasonable.
yeah. It's like a hyper desert marshal, only it doesn't have a body.
Yeah. Don't know if that makes it any less or more playable.
Yeah, I don't know. We'll see.
So the last
Eventually, we'll lose
buff,
something.
yeah, that's true. It's probably a good market card.
Yeah, I could see that.
Yeah. So the last buff was Twilight Hunt, which is the 1 cost killer. If it's a dino, it gets +1/+1. Well, now if it's a dino, it gets +2/+2. So I'm really interested to see if this spawns anything.
This is a really, really cool card. I used to run one of these in my market when I was playing Mono Time, and 4 of the Xena Initiation, because that gives it +1 permanently and gives it killer. And in the market, when you're going to market for something, you don't really have the extra power to pay 2 for the Xena Initiation. So I would have 1 in the market of this because it only costs 1. And I think that there's going to be a time or maybe Praxis deck out there with World Bear Behemoths. You want to put killer on uh, Dawnwalkers, and I think that a really reasonable card to also have in maybe as a one of or a one of in your market would be Snapping Brush Strider, Brush Stalker.
I
Let me
know the card
see.
you're talking about, but I can't remember its name.
Snapping Brush Stalker. It's a 4-cost 5/5 dinosaur with double time influence. When an enemy spell is played, put Snapping Brush Stalker into your hand. So you want to make sure that your opponent doesn't have a fast spell, but if you can give this thing killer, you can repeat this effect anytime your opponent plays a spell. You can repeat killer
That's
every time
pretty
they play.
insane.
Yeah,
They only can play units for basically the rest of the game, and then
I think it's something that I tried out once, and it was a pretty cool card to have, like just as a 5/5 that you can attack with and
turn it
and play
into
a
a
spell.
7/7. That's insane. Okay,
Yeah,
we gotta try and brew around that. Maybe make that the brew of the week next week if we come up with something.
if we can do it, yeah.
All right.
um, yeah, so that's the last of the buffs. We already talked about all the nerfs and everything. So let's move on to topic number 3.
Topic number
This
3
is
is the balance changes whiplash that we have been
yes, Jay.
experiencing the
Please,
last month.
please get out your soapbox, and I will sit back and let you go.
So recently, as in the last couple months, Direwolf has been making a lot of changes to cards, like a lot. They've axed a lot of decks in a single go. Although I will say that the last change didn't necessarily axe decks more than moved things around and made those decks adjust. So like Hru Control wasn't the monster that it was before those balance changes, so I feel like the previous balance changes were a lot more quote unquote balanced than this most recent change, which felt really, really like sweeping and stepping over a proverbial line. Um, Whether or not this is healthy is an opinion. I don't think it's healthy. I know that a lot of players that enjoy a constant changing meta think that it is healthy. I don't think that it's a good look when you have to constantly change a ton of cards, because either A, you don't have confidence in your player base to figure shit out, or B, if you truly do believe that these cards are unbalanced and then you make these huge changes and then fucking 2 months later or a month later, people are complaining about something else. And then you're like, well, fuck, we suck at this balancing thing. Like, it makes me wonder if Direwolf is catering to the loudest people. I am of the opinion that the before these most current balance changes, the meta was very healthy, other than the fact that a lot of people were playing Stone Scar, which I don't believe was an oppressive deck. It was just overrepresented. I think a lot of people like I said this last week, I think a lot of people played Stone Scar because it is fairly easy to learn. It is pretty easy to pilot, like on top of that, and it scratches all of those itches that people enjoy, where it's a good deck that um can lose to itself sometimes, but also has very powerful units that if you play them in a correct order, you probably will win the game. I don't think that that was a recipe for making the deck extremely overpowered. I think it was just because of the ease of access and playing the deck, people played it a lot, and that's why the latter felt like it was too many Stone Scar decks. So it makes me want to play less, like sometimes, like right now I don't have a whole lot of motivation to play the game because I'm kind of tired having to relearn metas. Like I was really enjoying, like I actually think that I was enjoying this meta before this balance change the most, that like this meta the most than any meta since around the time I started playing. I feel like players need to have some sort of expectation to try and figure shit out rather than letting Direwolf Digital figure the shit out for them. I think that there's not
Well,
enough innovation in the game and in its
there
player
is
base.
definitely not enough innovation in this game. I know that there's just a lot of people, myself included, who just say, "Hey, what deck are you playing? Give me a deck." There's a lot of tuners out there. There are just not nearly enough deck brewers, or the people who are brewing decks. I mean, the decks aren't, like
Polished.
the
They're not
absolute best deck at the moment. They haven't been tested. They haven't been tweaked. They haven't been, solidified. So they aren't really, showing the same results as all these other, already stabilized decks. So it takes time to figure that out, and nobody wants to take the time to do that. They just copy and paste the best deck.
Yeah, I think that I mentioned Knife Bloom earlier, and I haven't seen him in a while. And another player that comes to mind is like Brews by God. They played off the wall brew decks and always consistently did well with them. I think the problem
I
is
love
that a
that.
lot of people are not willing to put in the work to figure out and try out new decks. I don't blame them because I'm not a brewer, I'm not a deck builder. I enjoy tweaking decks and making them my own. That's why I like Xyroth so much, is because Xyroth comes up with deck concepts, and then I make little tiny changes that apply to me, and then I do fairly decently with those brews. I think that the problem is that a lot of it's not, there's nothing wrong with wanting to go out and just playing a deck such as, like, let's say Stone Scar. A lot of people didn't want to play Stone Scar because it was pretty much figured out. The problem is that people want to win without really trying to make changes because maybe they're not sure of themselves, or if they lose 2 games in a row they just don't want to play anymore. I think the real issue is that not enough people are willing to try and innovate.
Yep, exactly. That is definitely a huge problem.
Yeah, I don't see, like, most of the good, like the good players, I didn't see a whole lot of them complaining about the game before this most recent balance change. Like, I thought a lot of them were really enjoying it, even like regardless of like the jokes that like GHP would make about like give me a reason to play something other than Stone Scar. I'm like, there's plenty of people playing other decks in these
Yeah,
formats. Like, and Stone Scar looks like like it's super oppressive because it's overrepresented. Look at the ECL Invitational. It was 16 players, and what, 9 of them showed up with Stone Scar? Of course, half of the top eight's going to be fucking Stone Scar. Stone Scar. Like,
yeah,
and Stone Scar, what? I think it put 1 copy in third and fourth, and then the other 3 were in fifth through eighth. Like, it wasn't. I felt like this was just stepping, like this most recent balance change was really stepping over a line. I really wish that they would have given the meta either more time to figure itself out, or like just waited until a release to see what it did.
yeah, yeah. I mean, I can totally see all that. Well,
So I'm sure that I'm not the only person that feels this way, because we talked about it last week about the concerning numbers with Steam charts. Well, today is the 1st of July, which means that Steam charts has updated last month's numbers, and last month's numbers. Sorry, I am tripping over my words really bad tonight.
how dare you?
Yeah, last
You're
worth
fired.
last month's numbers were the worst they have ever been in the existence of Eternal, and I don't want to see that happen because I do enjoy playing this game, and I just wish that um Direwolf would stop like changing it so abruptly, and so, like, I mean, just like all those changes. They made so many changes at one time. The meta looks completely different than it did.
Yeah, I mean, that's correct.
So, do you have any opinions or things to add to this
Um,
conversation?
Not particularly, really. I mean, I take what Direwolf does and I try and play the game. Like
And
I
maybe
don't
that's
I
a
don't
maybe that's a healthy and good way to look at it. Like, I can understand that. I just, the where I'm coming from is, all I'm saying is this is how I personally feel about it. I don't think that
Yeah,
other people should feel this way, but for me personally, it's not like I'm consciously making the effort to be like, I don't want to play this game because they keep changing it. I just naturally don't feel like I want to play, be because
yeah,
of the
that's
changes.
yeah. I mean, see, for me, when I don't feel like I want to play, it's usually because of the meta. Like I don't want to play against Stone Scar again. I don't want to play against FJS again. Like, and then I'll just go draft instead.
Yeah.
Um,
Um,
you know,
and this is no comment on the current meta. I haven't played enough to really make an opinion. Maybe it's a good meta, like right now. That's possible. I don't think that, like, I don't want to comment on that. I This is solely a comment on the fact that they are making so many drastic changes in such a short period of time.
yeah, that's understandable.
All right. Let's move on to our average brew of the week. So-
All right. So, our average brew of the week is by Allison. Allison is actually one of the fellow new mods like myself and Kalos and Alomba and all of them. But this deck is called The Ladies Call Me Chunky Chunk. It is a Skycrag Yetis deck. She's got a great write-up in her Eternal Warcry, which we will link in our Eternal Warcry version of the deck. And it's got, here, let me pull this up here real quick. It's got 4 Mischief Yeti, 4 Snowcrest Yeti, 4 Champion of Fury, 4 Fearless Yeti, 4 Crunch, 4 Howling Peak Smuggler, 4 Pock Pock, 4 Wump, and 4 Chunk Chunk. So the deck tops out at 4 there in the main deck. It's got a couple of Swift Refusal to stop, harsh rules. It's got 4 Torch, 4 Permafrost, and 4 Thudrock Masterworks. Thudrock's Masterwork is absolutely phenomenal. That and Wump are, I think she what Allison says in the actual write-up is, because it's a Yeti's deck, it runs 4 copies of Wump and 4 copies of Yeti's Masterwork, which are both Xenon Obelisks with upside that cost 3, which is absolutely nuts. And I don't know if you guys could tell, but while Jay was ranting a little bit there, I played and won a game of Eternal with Yetis. This deck is really super powerful. The Snowcrest Yetis have Aegis, so they can't kill them very easily. Your units are just like generally relatively powerful. You've got these Pock Pocks that you can play for free and get a free snowball. And then a 1/5 that can become a 2/6 or a 3/7 or whatever. The list is really solid. The market is 1 Backlash, 1 Ice Bolt, 1 Torrential Downpour, a Jawbone Greatsword, and an Obliterate. The only thing that I wish was in this, and it may just be because it's not good enough, but I wish that there was an Islands Intervention in here.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Yeah, I mean, Islands Intervention costs 1 if you didn't know. It's a fast spell. It's modal, which means that there are 3 choices that you can make. You either deal 3 damage to an enemy unit with flying, which is very good, or you negate an enemy 3-cost spell, for example, Pristine Light, or your Yeti get +3 health this turn, which is great if you attack and your opponent chooses these blockers that are going to kill a lot of your units, and then you just, all my units don't die, yours do.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't know. This deck seems really, really cool. Allison is a good player, and you know what? I'm pretty sure Bassoon Buffoon's going to be happy with this one too.
Yeah, and aggro is always a good choice at the beginning of the month, and that's definitely an aggro deck, so I would definitely check it out.
For sure. Yeah, right. Exactly.
All right, cool. So my brewski of the week is a Rheingeist, which is another Cincinnati brewery. I'm not sure if I've had one of their beers on the cast before. Rheingeist Wowie, which is a apple ale with pineapple and passion fruit. This is
Wowie.
Very sweet, and wowie is it good. All right, what did you bring this week?
So my brewski of the week is a Chick-fil-A cup full of ice water that has turned into water now. I'm a bowl cut. I didn't actually go out and buy beer. However, after doing some filming today, one of the partners of my business actually handed me a bottle of wine.
All right.
This is Donati Piscine's Central Coast Claret. I don't even know what any of those words mean.
Wine drunk, best drunk.
It is a 2014 wine from California. It says sustainable farming. I don't know. Talks about
it's a 2014 wine, so that's been sitting on his shelf forever, and he's like, "Fuck, what am I gonna do with this? I'm never gonna drink it."
The warm daytime temperatures and cool evening breezes grapes to mature slowly, thereby developing wines of great character, balance, and complexity. I don't like wine.
You don't like wine?
No.
Dude, wine drunk is great.
It all just tastes terrible to me.
Okay. Well, enjoy it. Yeah, I'm sure she'll enjoy it. Too bad you won't. I enjoy wine drunk, but wine hangovers are the worst. Anyway, so let's do our sign-offs. Shark, where can they find you?
All right, Jay, they can find me. The best place to find me is on Discord. Jay's going to put a link in our description here, and you'll be able to find it in the description of the deck of the week as well, which I'm now going to start posting on Eternal Warcry every week after we upload the podcast. There's also on Twitch, you can find me on TallSharkandHandsome. In Eternal, you can find me as TallSharkandHandsome +4960, and on Reddit, you can also find me on TallSharkandHandsome. Then on Twitter, you can find me as @SharkandTall because Tall, Shark, and Handsome won't fit. Jay, where can they find you?
So you can find me on Discord at Sharks Discord or Bassoon Buffoon if you happen to be in there. Twitch is JayOSU. I haven't streamed in a little while. I do want to stream soon, but I don't know when. I'm sorry. Eternal is JayMang plus 8035. Reddit is JayOSU. And then Twitter is at JayOSU, where I am making a conscious effort to use it at least a little bit. All right. So if you guys have any questions or topic suggestions, please leave a comment wherever you want. Just leave it and I'll find it eventually. May take a couple weeks. Best place would be the Discord though.
Yes.
And
so one other thing to mention before we go here is I went through this past week and I found all of the decks of the week and I posted them all in a row. So if you go find the Eternal Struggle, all one word, on Eternal Warcry, that's the name of the account. You can see all of our lists, and it'll have links to every single episode. Each deck list is going to have a link to its episode. There's only a couple episodes that we didn't have a brew of the week, and those ones aren't good enough anyway. I think it was episodes 1 and 3.
Yeah, neat. Thanks for going through all that hard work, Shark.
Yeah, no problem. And this week's list will be up as well shortly.
All right. Thank you guys for joining us for episode 19 of The Eternal Struggle, and stay average.